Much appreciated for your time management. So again, before I call on to the stage our next speaker, to again re-emphasize the message, please let's use the hashtag. It's there displayed, Youth Forum on all social media platforms. It's also live streamed on Facebook and also on X, formerly Twitter. We want to hear your feedback. It's not going to be a conversation that comes from one end. It ought to be a conversation with you as well, to develop that channel so that we can hear your feedback as well. Next up is His Excellency Dr. Senior Counsel Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, our former Vice President and the leader of the Wiper Party, onto the stage. Karibu.
A very warm Nairobi good morning. Excellency, former Prime Minister of Norway, I'm so happy to see you again. The founder of Oslo Center. I've also seen my good friend Tora. Brian Tora, you gave him to us, and it's been wonderful in shaping our democratic practice in this country. So the Oslo Center, and Norway in particular, have been wonderful partners in the journey that we as Africa, and more particularly as Kenya, have undertaken in our democratic transformation. So it's so good to see you again in Nairobi. I have a problem with pronouncing Norwegian names because they're not easy, including that of Finn, executive chair of the Oslo Center. I also want to recognize my fellow panelists here, Governors Timami of Lamu and Sakaja of Nairobi, and our sister Dr. Asha, who has been so elaborate in identifying the role of the youth. Allow me then to extend my greetings to all of you, Excellencies, as well as the Secretary General of Muslim World League, who may not be here. He's been very kind to also co-sponsor this event. Distinguished visitors, fellow leaders and elders, and our youth present today at this place, which is also very significant, the only UN headquarters in the whole of the third world. Whenever I come to Gigiri, I remember the long journey of how the late Secretary General Kofi Annan had to go out of his way to make Nairobi a UN headquarters at the same level as New York and Austria and Geneva, then Nairobi. So it's wonderful to be back at UN headquarters in Gigiri. It's also both an honor and a joy to be here today to formally start this important conference, which is being co-hosted, as I said, by the Oslo Center and the Muslim World League. I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to the Secretary General, the Executive Chairman of Oslo Center, and the Country Director of Oslo Center in Kenya and Somalia, Own Phoebe Mungai. She's been wonderful in also helping political parties in our country to get along. Ladies and gentlemen, the subject of breaking barriers through intergenerational dialogue is so timely because the youth in Kenya have actually shown the way. They've literally broken the barriers. And I'll elaborate and illustrate that example of the Kenyan youth. In Africa's current socioeconomic and political landscape, the theme of breaking barriers through intergenerational dialogue is equally vital. That this conversation is taking place in Nairobi, as I said, is absolutely and as it turns out, very timely. Africa's youth population is one of our most valuable assets. Youth are more than simply tomorrow's leaders. We've heard our sister Dr. Asha say the leaders of today. They offer new viewpoints, unlimited energy, tribeless structures, and a desire to innovate, which may propel our continent ahead. However, this promise will only be fulfilled if we actively engage in meaningful intergenerational discourse. Intergenerational discussion facilitates exchange of ideas, wisdom, and experiences between young and the elders. This reciprocal learning process has a potential to increase understanding, lessen generational conflicts, and establish a unified front as we solve our continent's difficulties. This type of discourse allows us to overcome gaps, share our rich past, and collaborate on sustainable development. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, many of you, whether you live in Kenya or follow from abroad, are aware of the GENZs and millennial-led nationwide rallies, which have permanently transformed the political discussion in Kenya, in my opinion, for the better. Disenchanted and alienated by the political leaders, Kenyan GENZs and millennials use their constitutional rights, notably under Articles 1 and Article 37 of our country's Constitution 2010, and organize weekly non-violent rallies via social media platforms. Amazingly, at some of those forums, they would call political rallies, which would record upwards of 800,000 in attendance. I've been, as Governor Sakaja said, in political leadership, but I can't remember any time we could get together, a rally in excess of 800,000, but our youth were able to do that. Sadly, state-sanctioned brutality greeted these non-violent rallies against a harsh Finance Bill 2024, bad governance, rampant corruption, outrageous affluence, and an executive in flight mode. Kenyans will understand what I mean by that. Hundreds more were injured by acts of police brutality, and over 50 young Kenyans lost their lives as a result of police gunshots. Many others, including 4th Estate members, have been singled out for kidnapping and hijacking, and I'm afraid this practice seemingly continues. In addition to the peaceful Mandamano protests of previous year, during which the security agencies killed over 75 innocent people and injured hundreds more, we calculate that over 300 young Kenyans have lost their lives, especially in light of the unclaimed bodies in some of our city morgues, because they dared to engage in dialogue, because they dared to break this intergenerational barrier. Now, the Kenyan youth did not opt for the streets because it was an option. They expressed their reservations and dissatisfaction through the public participation process at the county and national levels. Kenyans wrote to their representatives and signed online petitions. Be they young, middle class, or elderly, Kenyans encountered a plethora of silence and ambivalence. They were lectured down from the rooftops of their luxury four-wheel drive vehicles that they did not know what they were asking for, and that this regime knew what they were doing. In other words, until many years later, the only conversation any Kenyan could have, whether it be intergenerational or not, was at the voting booth. But Kenyans used to say, no, the game has changed. That was a message from our colleagues in the ruling coalition. We call them Kenya Kwanza. They said simply wait. If you have anything to do, to say, wait until 2027. Our young Kenyans, despite and in spite of such carelessness, chose the constitutionally protected role of peaceful picketing and demonstrations because it was their only alternative. One may wonder, Did this path accomplish any real and long-lasting change? Yes. Unequivocally, yes, ladies and gentlemen. The whole cabinet was disbanded. The Inspector General of Kenya Police Services tendered his resignation. The government spokesperson apologized unreservedly for public officials' extravagant and wanton spending and opulence. The President of Kenya was grounded in Nairobi for the first time since taking office. At some stage, was even barricaded in the State House, Nairobi, actually, and compelled to re-examine the functioning of his administration. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Kenya's Gen Z, we call them Generation Z, has made significant contribution to the country's political trajectory by breaking down barriers via constitutional discussion, for which our nation remains truly grateful going to the future. Kenya Gen Z has also influenced several African movements. It is no longer business as usual anywhere in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, Excellencies, one of the primary goals of this conference is to investigate how governments may actively engage youth in development processes. Token gestures are insufficient. That time has indeed gone by. Here in Kenya, the Gen Zs, the millennials, and I heard Governor Osakaja say he's a millennial, and Kenyans at large say tokenism is insufficient, indeed is unacceptable. Youth participation must be meaningful and impactful. Any government worthy salt should abandon the habit of deception and falsehoods to the youth. If one's manifesto declares unequivocally that it is youth-driven and directed, the assumption and presumption is that once elected, the representatives would be youth-aligned and focused. Anything less, the Gen Zs are proven, is a betrayal of the hopes and aspirations of the electorate. We have to get beyond the idea that young people are just hoodlums and cogs at political events, only sometimes to provide security. This indignity must surely end. We require a new deal that at its critical heart seeks and sees the youth as equal stakeholders who have a crucial role in shaping our nation's future, building a shared prosperity that will be the envy of even our more developed partners. But conversation by itself, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I submit, is insufficient. We also need to be dedicated to locating and removing the obstacles standing in the way of advancement. These obstacles might have the origins in societal conventions, cultural standards, or even antiquated laws that no longer meet our requirements. Through raising awareness of these problems and having constructive conversations about them, we may develop solutions that work for all future generations. As we remove these obstacles, we open the door to a more equal and more inclusive society where everyone, regardless of age, faith, can contribute to the advancement of our country and our continent. Finally, Excellency, require mentoring, and I think the time for that is now, and I do not think they are averse to suggestions on mentoring, because they also require and be able to dig deep into the expertise that some of the elders will have gone through. The knowledge of elders, paired with the ingenuity of the youth, can result in intergenerational development that benefits the entire continent and indeed our respective African countries. Elders may offer guidance, mentorship, as I said, and a detailed understanding of our cultural as well as our historical context, while young people can contribute new ideas, technological breakthroughs, and a dynamic approach to problem solving. This collaboration should be promoted and institutionalized so that it becomes an integral part of our development plan. We must ask ourselves, how can we create opportunities for frequent engagement between youth and elders? How can we ensure that our engagement yields real outcomes that propel our countries forward? These are some of the questions, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, that I think will require addressing even at this forum. And I want to thank you, I want to take this opportunity to thank you and wish this conference great success, because anything comes to Nairobi from the continent is well appreciated. And in fact, even in terms of climate change conversations, a lot of things happen in the capital city of Nairobi, and therefore it's our privilege always to receive our African brothers, and particularly at this particular time, the youth from our continent. May God bless our own country here and bless the African continent. I thank you.